Hey everybody, this is Nicole Nomasad again, and I'm here to share with you another process video using the February Hip Kit. This is the page that I'm going to walk you through how I made it. Didn't quite turn out how I planned. I don't know why that's happening to me lately, but it is. And it is what it is, so that's okay. So let's get to it. I had these little tiny photos I wanted to use of my daughter acting like a goofball. So I kind of had an idea in my head using these Heidi Swapp journaling, I'm going to call them journaling cards for the base. And I didn't want to use every single one of them to fill the page because I should have just left them intact if I was going to do that. But I really wanted to use kind of a 4-column, I want to call it a grid, but 4 columns on my page. So I kind of grabbed my scraps from the paper pad, as you can see, and I'm just making some photo mats. And I'm more using those journaling cards for pattern paper versus a journaling card. And so I'm just kind of layering on other little bits of color to kind of draw all 4 of those cards into the same kind of color scheme. Once I get that done, you'll see that all I'm going to do from here is actually quite simple. I'm just going to create 4-column, I'm going to call it a grid, a 4-column grid up and down the page on a bit of a slight angle. Just to finish off my page. So it actually goes pretty quickly because the background's so busy. I don't add a whole lot of embellishments, but there I am showing you I'm gonna do that 4-column grid. Is that even, I don't know if that makes sense, but so what I did was I cut down strips of paper, just some scraps I had from the kit. I think they're 3-inch strips because I think those journaling card squares are 3 inches. So I'm just going to cut down a bunch of different papers, and I was really trying to make sure that I kept in mind the direction of the paper and the pattern, as well as the colors and the actual pattern. So I really love that Webster's Pages polka dot. I truthfully, if between you and me, I think that all the DT loved that paper. I don't think there was one of us that didn't use that paper. And I'm going to cut down some of this My Mind's Eye paper that's super pretty, this bright fuchsia polka dot. And I'm going to trust really most of this page is playing around with where I want which patterns, and using bits from the 6x6 paper pad is just perfect for this. I think this was in the embellishment kit, and I did find one here that has just kind of like a grid, journaling grid, I want to call it, like a ledger type print, and I'm going to use that for my journaling area, which I don't add a lot of journaling to my pages, so even the fact that I thought of that on its own is pretty amazing because I seriously never journal. It's very, very rare. It's usually an afterthought. So I'm just going to stick down the photos because I was finding it was easier to figure out what papers to place if they were just went for it and just started sticking things down. And like I said, I was trying to be careful what patterns I was placing beside each other, so I didn't have dots beside dots. I just don't like that look. I think it's a little too crazy. And I didn't want like a lot of heavy colors together. So like this black, I didn't want it beside that bright fuchsia dot for the same kind of reason. So I'm just going to add these strips down. And you'll see that I tear some paper up again. Man, I love that dot. Even looking at that wonky dot paper is kind of fun. So that green, I end up taking that green off there. I like it, but it was too dark with the black underneath. So I'm actually going to move it over, and that's where I'm going to use to place my title, because I kind of needed an open space type area to place my title. And so now I'm just going to glue everything down, and then I'm going to rip my photos off, and then I'm going to stitch everything down. So I have to trim it a little. I try to do with my trimmer, but there's still too much hanging off to do that. So I'm just going to quickly trim it off with my scissor and then trim it down, and then I'll run it through my sewing machine. Now, in a case like this, sometimes where I'm trimming and it kind of doesn't look right after, you can kind of see there's little bits hanging off. I end up trimming it more. You can see I'm trimming it down 1/4 inch on each side, and then I'm going to mount it on cardstock or a different color pattern paper at the end, just to kind of clean up some of those edges a bit. Okay, so I'm going to take off all these photos, like I said, and I'm just going to stitch down each row. And in a way, obviously don't need to do this step, and I do stitch around the photos too. But I love stitching. You'll see probably every video that I'll ever do, you'll see that I stitch something on a project. I think it's probably like the cheapest embellishment you can ever add. Once you have a sewing machine, first of all, you're not just going to use it for scrapbooking. I mean, I don't, but even if you do, I mean, you can get one at Walmart for like $100, and a cheap one works really well. I have a Janome. I have a bit of a partnership with Janome, and so they actually gave me this one. And it's fantastic. It works super, super great. I can't say enough good things about it, but really any sewing machine you have would work. And, just watch your tension, and that's kind of the main problem people have with sewing on their projects is the paper gets stuck or paper rips. That's usually your tension. Anyway, that's my sewing tip of the day. So I'm just going to trip off these loose ends here and then shove my photos back on. And then I'm going to play around with embellishments. So what I did try to do is add an embellishment kind of per column. So I added that flare to the one photo, and then this fun camera from the crepe paper from the embellishment kit, the chipboard, underneath the one photo there, which kind of helped back up my title a little bit because the title's always camera ready. And then I decided I liked this leftover chipboard piece from one of the frames on the chipboard sheet. And I'm going to use that as a frame in itself, a really thin frame around that one photo. And then I get going here with my title. And I love, love, love the blue Heidi Swapp foam stickers. I think foam thickers are my favorite thicker. Does that make sense? They're easily liftable. So if you decide you don't want them, you can easily take them off. And I don't know, they don't seem to dry out like the other ones that do. Like I've had chipboard ones that fall off pages, for example. Not cool. But my foam ones have always seemed to be in place. I don't know, maybe that's just me or the humidity where I live. I'm not sure, but I really just love the foam ones. They're my favorite. And then I decided to play around a little bit with this washi tape. I really love the Heidi Swapp washi tape with all the different patterns on the one roll, which is really like getting 3 rolls in one. So I'm just going to staple a couple spots and then stick it down and kind of play around with that a little bit. And then I decided to add some stuff to my journaling area, which I did think I was going to run through my typewriter, but as I get going in this part, I realized no, I'm just going to handwrite a few things on there later, or maybe I'll add some strip journaling, which I do often, and so I'm just going to stick it down. I don't sew over it either, which is fine. If it bothered you, I guess you could sew over it too, but it's fine. Sorry, my belly's kind of hanging in the way there. That's embarrassing. And I'm gonna keep things kind of simple, like I said, because it is pretty busy. And even watching it back now, doing the audio, it's pretty busy. Like I probably should have made a couple different pattern choices, but I'm okay with that. So I'm just playing around, and what I realized is there's a super cool die cut little tag in the die cut set. This is Just Be You, and I had these fantastic, oh my gosh, I'm going to gold emboss this. It's going to look super great. It's going to go great with that gold hello. And I go through the whole motion, and then what you just didn't see there is, oh boy, it did not look good. It was too much. I did a bad job embossing. So I stuck back with my original title, Always Camera Ready, and I used this camera cut out from my silhouette. It's one of the cuts from the Silhouette store, just on some black cardstock. And I'm just going to add my title here. And then moving it all onto the green, I believe. And just playing around with some of the embellishments. And my page is pretty much almost done, actually. Because it's pretty busy, I didn't want to add a whole lot of extra stuff. And what I'm using there actually is my favorite tool, and that is my old Heidi Swapp paper piercer. I wish she made more of them because it's so little, and mine has a little tiny bent end, and I love, love, love it. I'm just adding some droplets there. That's Tattered Angels Glimmer Glaze. I don't think you can get it anymore, but it's my favorite thing to add droplets in. You can see they're like perfectly round and kind of almost, now I want to say dimensional, I guess. They're not like an epoxy dot super high, but when it dries 3-dimensional, like kind of like it actually is the thickness of a nail polish, which I should really try nail polish. I wonder if that would work. I've been meaning to do that. So I'm just going to add in some rub-ons and all that kind of stuff in there. And I love these gold rub-ons. They're not super gold. They're not like, they're shiny, but they're not glittery. And And that's it for me. So I'm just going to show you some close-ups here of my page, and I hope this process video was helpful for you, and I'll see you next time.